Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's an honor for me to be here to join the VitaLink panel today. And it's an honor to be a moderator with questions, and I glad to meet you all. So first, just want to introduce myself first, and then we're going to introduce the other panelists. My name is Deirdre Nguyen. I am the currently Guyango Council members. By trade, I'm also a cancer scientist. I have a long title, which is a clinical genetic scientist, but I work in cancer lab and I work for Cost Diagnostic. Let me start. That's a little bit about myself, and let me start asking the panelists to introduce themselves as well. I have Morgan. If I mispronounce your names, I'm so sorry, and just help me to. Your last name is Zandanella?
Yes, exactly. Just
All
the
right.
way it's spelled. Yeah, thank you, Deirdre. Yeah, hi, Morgan Zandanella. Presented a little earlier on Medtronic, where I currently work, and currently engineering program manager at our neurovascular site here in Irvine, California. Graduated from Cal Poly SLO with a biomedical engineering degree, and I've been in medical devices for the past 6 years now.
Thank you. Welcome to the to be part of the panel today. And next, our guest is Anish.
Yeah, Anish.
Anish, I apologize.
You're
Anish.
fine. Yep. Hi, everyone. My name is Anish Acharya. I am the head of commercial at Molecular Instruments. We are a biotech startup that spun out of Caltech in 2018, based in Eagle Rock. So locally grown, organic, all that good stuff. I did my PhD at Caltech and did my bachelor's in bioengineering at Boston University, but excited to be here.
All right, thank you. It's very exciting, all the technologies that bring to our industry, right?
Yeah.
The next person would be Mark Kono. Hi,
yes,
Mark.
Hi, thank you very much. Mark Kono, I'm the VP of R&D for Edwards Life Sciences. We are a biomedical device company. I graduated from the University of California, San Diego, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. And I've been in the industry for 41 years.
Wow. The pioneer, right? Thank you, Mark. And the next guest would be Rafael Ibarra. Am I correct? Say your
you
name
are
correctly?
correct. Yeah, yes, you are. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Rafael. I am the head of the quality control laboratories at Takeda Pharmaceuticals at the Los Angeles site. Takeda is a global pharmaceutical company primarily headquartered in Japan, but in LA we focus primarily on plasma-derived therapies for antihemophilic factor VIII, albumin, and immunodeficiency. I've been in the industry for about 20 years, working within biotech, medical devices, R&D, genomics, bioengineering at UCSD, drug manufacturing, drug development, drug discovery, and more recently here at Takeda Pharmaceuticals, where I started here when it was Shire. It got taken over by Takeda. And again, yeah, I'm just looking to develop strong partnerships and a good pipeline from academia to industry so that we can better serve the needs of Takeda and our patients.
Excellent. And I think this is what the network it's all about. That's what brought all of us here together, right? And our next guest would be, I need some help on this one, Foyad.
He's the one that won't be here till 3.
Oh, he's the one who will be 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know my name's on here. I already did a little introduction of myself. I also in the industry worked for the same company for 23 years. I worked for Cost Diagnostic right after college, fresh out of college for 23 years up until today. So yes, thank you so much. And let's go into some of the questionnaire would be helpful, especially for the school preparation for students to prepare themselves for the career path. So number 2, for the question number 2, let's start with Zandanella. Does your company offer internship for high school and a college student? And if so, is there any age limit?
Yes, so we definitely do college internships. We even did it over the summer, and a lot of our interns were virtual as far as we could. I mentored one who actually had a project, and we sent the parts to her house so she could set it up there and work on her test method there. So it was actually pretty amazing the way that different groups were able to adapt. For high school, we don't necessarily, I would say, have internships, but we do have, I would say, like an informal shadowing program. We are trying to work more on developing high school programs, but we don't really have like a formal one established.
But then for college, this is a little elaborate from the question. So for a college student, are you looking for the second years or the third years?
Both. So we do hire sophomore and junior. There's not like a limit that will say no. I would say that it's more often usually junior to senior, just because usually they have more experience. But I recognize that catch-22 of needing the experience to get the experience as well. So there are sophomores too that are hired in as interns as well.
Oh, excellent. All right. Thank you for the information. Mark, the same questions. Does your company offer internship for high school or college? And do you have any age limit for the program?
We don't have any limits on the ages, although for some of the more engineering positions, we usually look for people that are already in a 4-year institution before we would hire somebody for an internship for them, right? But for lab techs and things of that nature, it could be almost anything before that, as long as they have a high school diploma.
Right, that's a good opportunity. Raphael, I'm gonna go with according to my screen. So Raphael, the same questions. Does your company offer internship for high school or college student? And does the program have an age limit or expectation from?
Well, we do offer internships. I haven't seen anything for high schools in terms of a formal program. Mostly we are looking for university students, 3rd year, 4th year, hopefully with the intention that they may transition to industry if they so desire. Age limit wise, we don't. I mean, I know people have been in the company for 35 years, which means they probably started when they were in middle school. But certainly, you know, I think for the internship program, we are looking for that level of educational background so that they can be successful in our company.
Thank you. And Anish?
Yeah, and process of elimination. I know I'm next. We don't have any internships. I mean, we're a startup. We aggressively are hiring at least at the college level. High school is a little bit, probably don't have enough experience yet to be working at the bench at least at our company. But I think, you know, just speaking as a scientist as well, like when you rotate in a lab or when you join a lab doing sort of advanced work at the bench, you probably need 2 or 3 months just to get up to speed. And so we love investing in our employees and hoping they grow with us. But an internship we just find is not, at least at our company, is not a good use of a student's time, because they'll spend 3 months learning and then won't get to really execute until they leave. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And I have one more, I think. Oh no, the other person at 3 o'clock. Well, for myself, we have the clinical scientist program, internship program at Quest Diagnostic. It's a limited program for licensure by State California, and it's required 52 weeks of hand-on. But the thing is, for the trainee, they get paid by hours. So they get like $17 pay during the internship for 52 weeks straight. And then after that, after they complete 52 weeks of training internship, they will acquire the state board exam. And when they pass board exam, they will get the state license. The requirements to accept into the internship program is you have to complete 4-year degree at with the discipline subjects like biological science or microbiology or chemistry, depend on which internship program that they're applying for at course. We have 4 limited programs at course. One is genetics, cytogenetic program, the other molecular genetic program, and then chemistry program and microbiology program. So 4 different internship program, and all of them, the trainees get paid. The intern get paid by hours, and they do get health medical cover benefit, as well as they also get 401k as well. So consider it's a full-time job, but they actually intern. And then after that, they will get a job at class and with the contract. So I think about 3 years 2 years of service contract. But then for the R&D side, we do have college internship, a separate during summertime intern. Only cover 2 months during summertime, and they also get paid. But then it's a short time for intern, not as 52 weeks intern. Okay, did I miss anybody, Autumn?
I don't think so.
Okay, how are we doing on time?
You're doing perfect. You're
okay.
Yeah, you're good.
All right, then let's roll down to number 3. Going to this number 3, go to Mark. Mark, we're gonna start with you. What entry-level positions should high school student and or college student apply for after completing a biotechnology program?
Yeah, biotechnology program, I would assume that you're looking for either an operations or a quality or an R&D type of position. And those are mostly for, either 4-year BS graduates or people who have masters or PhD types of programs. I've never heard of a biotechnology program in a high school, so I'm not exactly sure how that applies here or not. But like I said before, I mean, we do have, laboratory positions that are open all the time for technicians and things of that nature. Some of them do have AA types of degrees that were specifically designed for people that were going into the laboratory sciences or laboratory technician type of work. And so those positions are also available at times.
Thank you. This question, I'm not sure if it's going to be applicable for you, Raphael. Regarding to what entry-level positions should high school student and or college student apply for after completing a biotechnology program?
We do have technician level positions at Takeda, primarily in the manufacturing area. And even within the laboratories, we do have a modified job description where a college degree is preferred but not required. So we are open to individuals that do have levels of experience working in industry or through a formal education that would be able to execute basic laboratory methods. So certainly, for my department, it's very rare that we get people straight out of high school. It's typically people with college degrees, but I would expect, a strong, a training on documentation, technique. I certainly cannot elaborate on, what the high schools can offer from, laboratory perspective, but certainly, there's a lot of things that, can be done at that level, where it be electrophoresis, simple experiments, pH, conductivity, those kinds of things. So I think, that's what, I would indicate would be, the preference. But for Takeda, it's mostly manufacturing operators that would be running a lot of automated equipment.
Thank you. And this question's gonna go to the same question gonna go to Anish.
Yeah, echoing Mark and Raphael to an extent as well, like we hire at the college graduate level on both our manufacturing and research teams. The way I think about it is there's not really a difference in terms of credentials between those teams necessarily. It's more, what is the person or applicant looking for? What are they driven by? I mean, manufacturing for me are people who love to execute and get things done and get our product shipped out the door and help our customers directly. And the research team is more about kind of like moonshot ideas. What's coming next? How do you build a product? How do you think about what a customer will get in a year or 2 years or maybe more than that? And so high school level, I mean, I don't think I'd be against hiring a high school student, but I've never seen a high school student get enough lab experience that they would be able to succeed in that role. And I certainly wouldn't want to hire someone knowing they'll probably fail. So I think college level is typically, you know, what we look for. And yeah, in those two teams, like manufacturing associate, research associate, something like that, where you can build the foundational skills and really get a lot of room to grow within the organization.
Thank you. And Morgan, the same question to you.
Yeah, so similarly, for our engineering teams, yeah, we're looking for people that are graduating with their engineering degree for entry level. That being said, I think for high school and actually we've even had university students who do start at, you know, like a assembler or pilot line type associate and show really strong promise very early and work their way, you know, to become a line lead or supervisor or into like an R&D technician type role. And I've seen people who then, you know, maybe after high school get into like that technician type role and then decide to pursue an engineering degree and eventually move into like an engineering type role as well. But yeah, for starting out in most of our roles on project teams, yes, it would be an engineering degree most likely, or other STEM degree, of course. But.
And I know that, you know, as technology getting more advanced and advanced every single day, right? It's changing month to month. So the next question is,
sorry, Deidre, real quick. Someone had asked a question, I believe, for you. What particular license are they earning at Quest through that internship that you spoke about?
What particular? Sorry, Adam, can you repeat the question?
Sorry, license.
What particular license?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, after the training program, the license that they will obtain once they pass the board exam by State California, the license will be in the discipline of chemistry, limited license, clinical scientist, clinical laboratory scientist, in limited in chemistry, in cytogenetics, in molecular biology, and in microbiology. That's a 4 limited internship program that they will get the license in those 4 disciplines.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then I'm sorry, I'll let you continue.
Okay. All right. So so for the for number 4, as technology continue grow and continue moving very in a fast pace, are there any new positions available now that weren't available back then? Start with Morgan.
Oh man, start me on one that I need to think about now.
Do you want me to come back to you? I can move on to Mark.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Mark, you can take on the question.
Yeah, for us, what I would say is that cybersecurity has become a big issue recently, or maybe it was more in the financial areas before, but now it's coming into the med area as well. And so people that used to only be in the IT arenas are now are in our industry heavily. And the other one is artificial intelligence, right? Everything used to go to like Google and you know, Amazon and things like that. And now the medical industry is really getting into the artificial intelligence and machine learning and deep learning arenas as well. And so we have a full team that's, you know, dedicated to that type of data, digital data infrastructure. Digital marketing is now a big thing, right? Everybody's marketing through the digital world. So those positions weren't necessarily as prominent as they are, but they are there today.
Thank you. Raphael?
Certainly, I would say that there are certain opportunities created in the initiative to go digital. Certainly here at Takeda, we have what's called Agile 4.0, which encompasses a digital work stream focusing on driving innovation and operational excellence for the laboratory, but site-wide. You know, this impacts manufacturing and engineering. And I think some of the things to highlight are the artificial intelligence. We're looking to incorporate that, especially now within this COVID times, for training purposes, where people can actually visualize a process within the laboratory and execute it virtually using 3D modeling and AI. A robotic process automation, where we're not necessarily trying to replace analysts' headcount, but certainly utilize that as a tool to drive efficiency. These are software robots that execute tasks that normally would be done by a technician or an operator. Definitely predictive analytics is another thing that we're trying to drive progress, not just pulling data and trying to make sense of it, but being able to predict when we would have a failure mode in a specific process, in a specific method. These are things that we're heavily driving here at Takeda, and definitely just overall going digital. When we're looking at our shift huddles and daily meetings, you want to have the tier boards as opposed to paper-based systems. We want to go paperless, minimize the amount of paper, go digital. I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie Minority Report, but you have these digital boards and you're able to navigate through them and pull information real time, right? That's the initiative that we're driving. We're making a lot of progress site-wide in LA and globally, and certainly anyone that comes in, would benefit from having some background in IT and not just benchtop chemistry.
Thank you. And the same question goes to Anish.
Yeah, this is a tricky one, right? Because I think on the time scale that we're considering, we didn't exist as a company in the before, right? So the entire field of programmable molecular technologies is brand new. Like, we basically are learning how to program DNA, and our entire company is built on that platform. And now many therapies are being developed on that platform too. We can even look at our COVID vaccines we're hopefully all getting soon. But I think I really would reinforce some of the response we've heard so far. Like, social media marketing is a really novel thing that companies in our space are doing. Not typically a biotech thing to be doing. And I also really like the IT thing. I think from the earlier panel today, someone mentioned students are learning more programming skills like Python, and the ability to look through databases, and the ability to understand patterns in what people are using. And so I think, yeah, the ability to dig into data and understand how programming, scripting languages work is always is a successful thing to have in any field, not just biotech. But yeah, other than that, I don't think I have much to add here.
And I definitely want to echo that from Anish as well. They recently, because of bioinformatics, is something that new recently for just like 2 or 3 years is expanding. But like you talk about 10 years ago, we don't even know what bioinformatics is, right? Yeah. So that's something, a new position created just because of technologies and the expansion of genetic field and all the data, the amount of data they need to interpreting, right? So I think bioinformatics is one of the field that's growing continually into the future. Okay, we move on to number 5. We start with Morgan. Number 5, what necessary skill and techniques do you expect from students working entry-level positions?
So I think the first and foremost is that we expect students to come still ready to learn. I think a lot of times people think, okay, I finished my degree, I'm ready, I'm gonna know what to do and how everything works, and it's just not the case. We really need that open-minded and eagerness to continue to learn once they get here. We understand that degree is a baseline to build from. And so first and foremost is still that willingness to learn, because we're going to assume basically, like, if you've completed your program, that you do have that solid technical aptitude, and that, you know, some great problem-solving skills, being a self-starter. I think things that we look for, you know, like if I'm looking for more specifically technical type things, you know, I would say like knowledge of Six Sigma or DMAIC type processes for problem solving, or having some sort of internship experience and kind of working through that you know, industry experience if it's there, to really demonstrate that technical aptitude. And depending, again, and it depends on the role, right? So if it's more of like on a manufacturing or quality engineering side, that's going to be a little bit different what we're looking for than compared to in a research and development role. So how much computer-aided drafting or CAD skills somebody has, or technical writing, I think those types of things are going to matter more for the specific job, but are also something that we'd be willing to develop as well. But those are things that at least should have heard of or been exposed to, I would say, prior to joining.
Thank you, Morgan. And Mark, the same question to you as well.
I think the baseline is quite high, as Morgan was indicating, right? That, you know, DMAIC or Six Sigma process is familiar. It seems like, you know, MATLAB or LabVIEW, you have to know how to do the programming, Python abilities. CAD, in our world, CAD/CAM, you know, you have to know CAD/CAM. You can't just be, you know, familiar with it. You actually have to know how to run them. And so I think that those type of things, the bar is set higher. And then, yes, we are still looking for, as Morgan said, people who are still willing to learn, that eagerness, that inquisitiveness, right? All needs to come with it.
Thank you. Raphael?
Well, certainly I echo what Morgan had indicated. You know, we are looking at, you know, those capabilities of, you know, understanding DMAIC methodology, Six Sigma, a design of experiments, definitely, you know, the critical thinking skills. You know, that's certainly what makes a big difference throughout any area, actually, whether it's engineering, quality, manufacturing. You know, those are good things to start developing early on. And certainly, you know, we're open to helping people further develop those, you know, if they join our company. You know, we definitely have a very strong program, you know, rapid response, because issues will happen, right? No process is perfect, and there's change going on, and that's constant, right?
Absolutely. And Anish?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't disagree with any of the responses so far. I think the nature of our company is, I don't think we have like a fixed set of like specific skills or techniques or programs that someone has taken. I mean, I've done some of these trainings as well, and I think they're helpful in the right context. For us, I will say it's more about just attitude. And I think someone mentioned this earlier. Actually, Morgan, I think you may have said a version of this before in your talk. Coachability is a really, really critical, I think it's a skill. And that I don't think we expect to hire anyone who can come in and day one do their job to the fullest capability. We, you know, we're a startup. I don't have like a Six Sigma in-house professional who can teach someone that, but I do want to invest in people's growth. And the way we do that is, you know, we're open to training programs, we're open to those things. But, you know, the flip side of joining a startup is you have to be okay with some level of, what's a nicer word than chaos, but some level of unstructured problem solving. And so, yeah, it's hard for me to enumerate specific skills or techniques. One thing that I just want to mention really quick, because I noticed in the chat offline a question about CRISPR, and I think it just ties in here that I think, well, first of all, I think it's amazing that teachers are teaching about CRISPR in high school now, because that was not true, obviously. You know, it didn't exist when I was in high school. But I think just awareness of techniques and awareness of what's out there and just awareness of science that's going on around us is really, really cool and very critical too. Yeah.
And then for my part, I think it's all of your head nail, right in the head, the nail. The most important thing is communication. because as a supervisor for the lab, when I look into a person who entered into the lab, is be able to communicate, be able to have an open mind, right? And of course, what we do is the company or the lab, we're willing to train the person, so we don't expect the person to know technical, because things change. Every lab have different way, different SOP to follow, right? So we're willing to train a person, but the most important thing we would expect is at the entry level is to be able to communicate, be able to work as a team, and that's very critical for us, because everything is about team effort. Everybody contributing to the projects or doing testing, it's overall a team effort. So that is very critical, and that's something that we always want to highlight for anyone to go into industry to prepare for that. Okay, so we go into the
Oh, sorry, there's one more question in the chat that popped up. It's a multi-part one. So I'll open this up to anybody. Can you expand on bioinformatics? Do they have this position/department at your company, and what computer programs would be used by these professionals?
I could answer first. At Takeda, we don't have a bioinformatics program. We're strictly a technical operations manufacturing site. I'm sure there are in other regions.
who want to start that first?
I'm sorry? Yeah, in other areas, we definitely do. For example, in San Diego, there's heavily, bioinformatics for discovery, new chemical entities. But in Los Angeles, that's not something that we currently offer.
Yes.
I can
Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
So I could take that one on. At Edwards, yeah, we definitely have a bioinformatics group all in place. It's one thing that I always tell our management is that data is the new oil. And so from an industrial revolution standpoint, being able to mine data is the next big thing. And so we have a whole structure built up for, how do you produce data? How do you acquire data? How do you store data? How do you run through the data? How can you actually implement it into software so it can be set on an instrument? How do you validate the data? So there's a whole group set up to do that whole chain inside of Edwards.
Yeah, and let me clarify, my response further. So there's bioinformatics, which focuses a lot on, maybe the initial impression is on genomics and, genome mining, and all of that information. But in terms of bioprocesses and manufacturing processes, there's definitely a lot of data that's being generated. We're talking about process capabilities, continuous process monitoring and verification, control trending, massive amounts of data that we do generate and trend per regulatory requirements. So certainly we do have a data analytics team, a data sciences team, focusing on all of that, ensuring that we maintain and oversee our processes and maintain control.
Yeah, I think I would echo both of those responses. Medtronic definitely has multiple teams that are dedicated to the bioinformatics for across our different business units. It's not as prevalent here at our neurovascular site, just because we are more building like mechanical type devices, so we don't. My site here, we don't gather that type of information or process it, but we do have huge teams in all sorts of different locations that are looking at data that we're getting back from our own devices, whether that's looking at like our cardiac space and understanding different rhythms and how to do feedback loop systems. I'm thinking of a lot of our diabetes types products. So I think there's a lot of work that is being done in that space. Unfortunately, I can't speak too specifically to it from my experience here, but it is a huge part of our business, and I think it's growing. Internal conferences at Medtronic, have really been focused on specifically data analytics and big data, right? Okay, we have all this data, but what exactly are we going to do with it, and how do we make decisions based off of that? is a huge part of it. And I think, and continuing along with that, we've talked a little bit about AI and the drivers there, and I would agree that it's growing, but I think it's also a learning process for the company as well, as how do we apply this, and being able to figure out. Some businesses I think are more mature in that than others, for sure, even within the same company.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think that I echo to with all of you. The same thing for cost agnostic. We have the whole designated department for bioinformatics, and we look at each lab, like molecular lab or the infectious lab, and how to use the data, how to put in the reportings, and of course automations, it become a part of that as well. So
yeah, the way we look at bioinformatics is maybe we take a step back and think about the definition of how do we use computation to better understand biology. It's a little bit higher order of a definition. And for us, we are designing programmable molecular technologies. Every single thing we do has to function in biology. And so, when we partner with, we frequently work with Caltech to do community outreach at local middle schools and high schools, and start getting people thinking about how do proteins fold, and how does DNA bind to different things inside a real life sample. So I think for us, when we think about that, we don't even have dedicated departments for it, because it's got to be in every single thing we do. Gail, I think, asked the question originally. For us, it's in our research division. Like, every single person, works on bioinformatics in some way. In terms of scripting languages, Python is great, because if you don't end up working in biotech, it's still a useful programming language to know. I personally sort of learned everything using MATLAB, which is similar to Python, but a little bit easier. It's like a nice sandboxed environment where you can't break too much. So yeah, that's the only thing I would add to the bioinformatics from our side.
thank you. Now we go to next
I'm
question.
so sorry again. Your last panelist just arrived, and there are a couple questions in the chat as well. But first, if I could have you introduce yourself. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say your first name. It was
Autumn?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
It's a little echo on my side.
Sorry.
Can you repeat your question?
Your last panelist is Fuad? Is that how you say your name? I'm so sorry.
Yes, my name is Fuad.
Fuad. Okay, I was so scared to butcher that. But if you could
Yes.
just give a brief introduction of yourself before we continue.
Yes. First, sorry for joining late. I literally just finished my shift and just got home. I currently work at Gilead Sciences as a manufacturing technician. And a little bit about me, I got my bachelor from UC Irvine in biology, and then I got my master in biomedical sciences from Kansas City University. And then I also did the training in biotechnology program at Citrus College. I finished my program in June, and in September, I was fortunate to join Gilead, and I'm currently work on manufacturing medications like Ambizome and Victory. Victory is the COVID medication, so I felt it was a very a great experience to be in a very regulated environment at Gilead. I'm not sure if you guys just receiving questions, but if you guys have any question for me, you're welcome to ask me.
Well, welcome to the panel. We actually on question number 7. And welcome. Thank you for very much. My name is Deirdre, and can you help me to repeat your last name one more time? Your first name one more time.
Okay, first name is Fuad.
Fuad, thank you.
Yeah, but if you like to call me Freddy, it's totally fine.
Okay, number 7. Let's start with Anish. What are the latest trends in the use of equipment in the biotechnology industry that could be feasibly duplicated in the high school classroom?
Yeah, this is also a tough question. So I heard a little bit, I cheated a little bit because I heard a little bit of the earlier panel where I think some of the panelists were speaking about kits that have been being sent out for lab work at the college level around like gel electrophoresis and some, I think some other fundamental DNA analysis tools that could feasibly be reproduced at home. I mean, I think there are a lot of cool things we could probably do, like as a society, like, you know, there's so many companies making really cool kits for like learning in developing nations. And like during COVID, we're kind of like that as well ourselves. Like needing to have lab equipment at home is really critical. Obviously, we can't send expensive equipment to people's houses. Raphael, I think you mentioned HPLC, which is a great example of something you don't want to ship to anybody. But I think, you know, like fundamental tools like gel electrophoresis are certainly things I was able to learn in high school. And sort of, you know, you may not learn how to use every single machine you may want to know how to use, but you learn the basics of how, you know, what is the point of gel electrophoresis? Like, what is it physically doing? You know, I'm an engineer by training, and rather than just having a black box where you put something in and you learn how to read the results, I always find it's helpful to learn, why is it working the way it's working? What is it doing? How could you do it a different way? So actually, yeah, I think given the cost of entry for most of the tools that, you know, we all use at our companies, I think even just focusing on the basics, but really digging deep into how they work would be one way of looking at this.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And going down my screen there, Morgan, you're the next one for these questions.
Yeah, definitely. I think the hands-on nature of being able to bring something that's concrete or they're able to get their hands on is critical. And building that, I think, Anish, I agree. I think a lot of times it's the simplest things, but it's just getting started that can sometimes be the hardest. And so having some familiarity and then digging deep into something and understanding it from beginning to end is just a good practice to be able to work through. As far as things like to bring in, for me, I'm definitely more on the operations and manufacturing side of our business. So for me, even like, you know, when I see first robotics teams and access to machine shops or labs, being able to CAD something up, and then the difference between CADing it and what that physical part actually looks like and being able to fit them together are two totally different things. It can look beautiful in CAD, but we don't quite understand how things fit together once they're made, and tolerancing and things like that are, I think, valuable lessons that the sooner we learn them, the better. So I think even, and I've seen, you know, and 3D printers have come down in cost so much. I think that's a very quick way to, even if you don't have a full machine shop, to still kind of get that concept to development type, you know, to getting your final prototype kind of idea there, and have it be more hands-on to actually see that kind of that design process, and when working through challenges that could be very valuable, and hopefully is a low cost barrier. I think other things like skills that can just be learned that are going to be valuable no matter what. I think of a project I had that I found very valuable that I now think about for people that we interview is basic how-to and technical writing, being able to explain. So tear downs or build up or of a common device, whether that's like a phone or any sort of mechanical device that's just there, being able to really take it apart, build it up, using that language of how you do those types of things can be really valuable as well. And I think could be types of projects that, even though it's not directly related to exactly what we do, is still very applicable, because you learn that thought process and that methodology, which is really what's vital, because every problem is going to be different, but being able to have a strong process to use, I think that's where the value is.
Thank you. Go down to on my screen, Fuad.
Yes.
The question is, what are the latest trends in the use of equipment in the biotechnology industry that could be feasibly duplicated in the high school classroom?
Ooh. I mean, the first thing that came into my mind is gel electrophoresis, but it was mentioned already. I mean, you gotta start with the basic techniques, like before you jump into the little details. Maybe learn how to use the micropipette, for example, how to make a solution, dilution, learn how to transfer the media aseptically in a very clean environment. I feel these are fundamental and they're great, and I feel even people were at a later stage and they still don't follow the right protocols on how to do things, and they get taught on it later on. So if you want to do something at the high school level or at early stage, just focus on the fundamentals and things will build up with time, and no need like to rush things. But electrophoresis is really good. I would focus also on learning before doing. Just know the basics. What's DNA? Why do we care about it? What would be something that contaminated or something that can ruin your experiment? Know why we are doing something before you jump immediately into using the tools. I feel that will save a lot of trouble and save some money too. And another thing that was really big in my field and is documentation. Learning, maybe in high school, if the teacher can start emphasize documentation practices, how you cross a line, maybe with one line, and you put your initial and date. Don't tear any page. These documentation practices are really big, and if a teacher can emphasize that in the classroom, that would be really great. Another point that came into my mind, I forgot it. I want to say something while I was speaking, and then I forgot. If I remember, I will come back to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. And Mark?
Yeah, I mean, for us, our industry is so broad. We have electronics, we've got mechanical, we've got tissue. And so equipment-wise, there's a lot of stuff. There's some type of accelerated fault testing systems, right? Where you can run heat, atmospheric pressure, humidity, all these chambers that allow you to cycle your products through that. As Morgan said, anything that's rapid prototyping, whether it's 3D printing or whatever, right? Becoming familiar enough with those types of equipment. Operational wise, the robotics lab, if you could have, a single or 2-axis robotic system that you can, learn how to program and learn how to work through, those are all very valuable.
Absolutely. I saw Angela have a raise her hand, but can we save that for the Q&A? But one thing, and from my perspective, documentation is very critical especially working in the lab industry, and then understand the quality control, quality assurance ahead of time. That's very critical for us as well, because everything nowadays is heavily regulated by state and by CAP and by CLIA. If you work in the lab, so heavily regulated by that. So quality assurance and quality control documentation is a must. There's no way around it. So absolutely. And then if high school be able to expose to that, definitely prepare them ahead of time. And then everything else going to be aligned, right? All the training, all the methodologies and stuff. So I know we have a little time, so let's move on to number 8, and we do have 2 parts questions.
Yeah, I just something. Is that okay? I'm very sorry.
Sure, go ahead for it.
Yeah, I just want to say something that can be replicated easily in the classroom that is very important is working in a team, making different sides of team, and maybe mixing who's going to be the leader of the team. Maybe rotate who's going to take the lead, who's going to take the initiative, who's going to, follow the instructions. Because this is very important dynamic. In the lab, you don't work alone, you're always working a team. And it's very important to start, be adaptable and adjust and be respectful for every culture, every ethnicity. that's very important. And another thing is that came into my mind, learning how, for example, dealing maybe with bacteria cultures, I feel can be easily done relatively if you just have the material, maybe prepare the broth media and using Bunsen burner, how to transfer using the right tools, how to transfer things from the media to the plate, for example. Yes.
Thank you.
Deirdre, can I have my day in court too? I think you skipped over me. On my
Oh,
question.
I apologize. Yes, Raphael. Sorry.
No worries. So if I understood your question is, what are the trends in instrumentation that can be replicated in
the high school classroom, correct.
Right. Well, certainly, when it comes to instrumentation and in industry, that comes at a huge capital cost, right? I mean, not everyone can afford, not every high school, and I don't know how well high schools are funded now, but certainly not everyone can, capitalize for a GC, a multi-TOF, an HPLC. Definitely, there's, it's expensive, to be able to resource all of that in a classroom. So most of the stuff, is smaller scale, kit-based, electrophoresis, pH, simple stuff. But certainly there are things that can be replicated in the classroom. I think from an instrumentation standpoint, it's very critical to understand where instrument meets method and method meets process, because that's really how it's utilized in the industry, right? And understanding the continuum of that aspect, will help make the connection and certainly be able to address a lot of problems that we face in industry, right? Instrument breakdown, mean time to failure, overall equipment effectiveness. These are concepts that can certainly be taught in the classroom setting. Certainly aspects of validation, right, that are very critical. System suitability, right, that's certainly transferable. The criticality of calibration and technique, as well, and preventive maintenance, right? Whether it's a spectrophotometer, I think a classroom setting in high school can afford a spectrophotometer. That shouldn't be too much. Some of them are even donated. We donate HPLCs left and right. So I think that's critical. Definitely, I support the technique-based approach, the documentation, and certainly the problem solving, right? When it comes to why is this not working? We face that all the time. Equipment breaks down. We don't have the asset management capabilities 24/7 to fix an instrumentation on the spot. And when you have people working together and identify what's the root cause for instrument failure, I think that's definitely valuable in industry, and that you can replicate in a high school classroom, independent of whatever piece of equipment, instrument, complex or smaller. Right?
And Raphael, thank you so much. But I've been working with a lot of high school in the area, and then when you say you donating the old equipment to high school, that kind of ring the bell, because I know a lot of teachers a lot of science teachers gonna love you for that, because high school they don't have enough equipment to teach the students, and then by having donating, that's great.
Absolutely. We go through instrument life cycle every 5 or 7 years, and once it hits the depreciation and no longer has any book value, we certainly want to move that out of the lab. We want to go for the next generation of instrumentation. Smaller is better, lean. Definitely we want to have a smaller everything, right? Mm-hmm. Our computers or workstations are no longer these big boxes. They're small E-lace computers. You used to see an FTIR instrument be this big, and now it's the size of a small
compact, right?
Handheld,
I know
compact,
there's a DNA, there's a MagnaPure DNA extraction machine. 5-6 years ago, it's a one bench lab. Now it's like a third of the bench is tiny bed, right?
Absolutely. So that's a good thing to consider, right? We go through that. So we cycle through a lot of instrumentation, make sure that we obviously take into consideration the minimalist concept and conserve bench space to drive efficiency.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move to number 8, which is 2-part questions.
Can
I know
one thing really quick. Sorry, Deidre.
Yes,
I do
go
want to
ahead.
move beyond this question, but I think it's because instrumentation is so difficult in our field because it's so expensive and large and whatever. The one point I wanted to make is, like, especially in this time where we're all like working from home and learning from home, is my feeling would be it's better to teach the concepts behind how instruments work than how the instruments work. If we hire someone, I can teach them how to press the right buttons on an HPLC. But if they go through and learn how liquid chromatography works at like a base level and understand the concept of what a machine can do, I think that's still more useful.
I think that's practical and all. Certainly, given the constraints and limitations that we have, but can you learn how to drive a car by reading a book?
I mean, a car is much more accessible, though, as a concept than an HPLC. Like even gel electrophoresis, it's not a high skill technique. It's something I think I learned how to do in high school, but like, I don't know if everyone would know, like, oh, it's just a way of physically pulling apart DNA using an electrical field.
No, I'm not in disagreement with you. I'm just playing devil's advocate, right? Certainly, I think that's value added.
Thank you so much for all the input. But because we do have time that we had to catching up, and we do have a series of questions. So let's move on to number 8. And we have only 12 minutes left, so we're going to do a marathon a little bit. So number 8, I know this question might not apply to some of you, but what certifications or license should students have, or do they even matter? And which certifications most desire? I think that's a difficult question right there. Let's start with Mark.
Yeah, for me, there's not really any of them that are required per se, right? But I think that, you know, professional engineering licenses or, you know, project management licenses, those are all beneficial as you want to continue on in your careers versus getting in the door.
Thank you. Anish, you next.
Yeah, I don't think I have a whole lot to suggest here that we require. I think like the pharmaceutical colleagues here will have like good clinical practice and good manufacturing practice. Like some of those are helpful frameworks to understand, but I can't think of anything to add here. I'll give you my time.
Oh, Morgan.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think that there's anything in particular that we go out and like look for, especially for entry level. That being said, I think one thing that Medtronic's been really encouraging, and we have our own version of it inside, but I know that there's other accrediting bodies out there, is like a 6 Sigma green belt or black belt type certification. But we also do that internally as well. And I think important with that, and it kind of gets into the discussion that Anish and Raphael were having of the difference between learning it and applying it. And so having a certification where you're actually having a project, which is what we would do through an internal certification, I think is more beneficial probably than just having the certification, you know, and the letters. That being said, I agree with Mark on like, you know, getting a PMP, like something like that. Yes, it definitely is something that's going to help continue, but not necessarily required.
Got it. And Fuad?
Yes, for pharmaceutical, definitely there's a lot of training can be done, but it's not necessarily required. So it depends. For pharmaceutical, I want you to think about manufacturing, or it can be laboratory, and they can be different, very different. So for biotechnology training program would be great, and there's no requirement for it. They would teach you everything from scratch. They would teach you documentation, they would teach you the basic technique, PCR, buffer, calibration, spectrophotometer, all of that. That's the program that I went through myself at Citrus College. For manufacturing, I met some people that didn't have any training before. They train you on the spot. You just need to be ready to read a lot, because there's a lot of SOPs you need to read, but they will teach you. For technician part, the more technician you go, the more hands-on experience, and they can be learn on the spot. They're gonna teach you maybe how to press the button, what you do before this step, what you do after this step. But for the laboratory, yeah, biotechnology program would be great.
Thank you. And Raphael, I didn't miss you this time.
Thank you. Certainly, we don't have any specific requirements, nothing that we're looking for, but there are things that stand out for individuals to stay competitive in the labor market. You know, certain things do catch our eye, right? Program management, project management obviously helps, not so much at the entry level, but it does resonate, you know, that someone has that that thought process, you know, of project scopes. Biotechnology programs certainly help for a laboratory environment. Definitely GMP, you know, that's thrown out. That's not something that we expect academia to have a curriculum designed for, but that helps, you know, if there's an understanding of what it means. Sometimes regulatory as well, you know, that's thrown in, but definitely, you know, Six Sigma, you know, these concept of Six Sigma, you know, we don't need someone to be a Six Sigma black belt, you know, yellow belt, green belt, but understanding, you know, what that encompasses, you know, lean practices, design of experiments, all of these things I think are good things to have. If any, you know, even if it's just, you know, in a peripheral sense, right, from an understanding perspective, because you're absolutely right. And Takeda will come in and we'll recertify you, no matter if you already, you know, received that somewhere else or, you know, through formal academic training. We have our own program and our own standards. So those things are good to have, but they're not requirements.
Thank you. And in terms of for my field, in terms of the lab perspective, for us to do the testing, our lab is esoteric lab, so we do a lot of testing on the patients, and it does require to have license. Without a license, you cannot touch patient. You can even open patient sample. Just open it.
Well, that's different because that's diagnostics, right?
Yeah, that's a diagnostic, correctly.
There's issues
so,
with data integrity and accuracy of results.
Exactly. So we do require to have a license, and going back to a little bit, and at the different license for internship, we do require for intern to have a license, a trainee license from State California too. So not just an intern, but we require to have to apply for a training license from State California to be an intern. So that's for the requirement. Let's move on to number 9, and this is a two-part questions. What level of writing is necessary for entry level biotechnology careers? Is additional training offer? Let's start with Anish.
I mean, I think we've covered this a little bit so far. Like, good documentation is an important lab skill. Again, like for me, maybe I was just a bad student, but for me, I work better when someone tells me why to do something. So I learn by case studies, and a great case study for good communication and good written documentation is, you know, a lot of times you pick up a project in lab that someone else left off, and you want to learn from where they left off. And having good written skills is the key to doing that. Being able to go back and see what you worked on 6 months ago, because I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I forget what I worked on sometimes a week ago if I don't write it down. So I think, you know, yes, like we provide training. I think that's part of just personal development anyway. I don't think that's like necessarily needs to be like a structured training environment, but yeah, super important to document things you do so you remember what you did in the future.
Excellent. Morgan?
100%. Writing is vital, critical. We're in a regulated industry, and being able to document what we do is the difference. You know, the common phrase is, if you didn't document it, you didn't do it, right? So if we don't have good records of how things were done, how they were tested, then you may have the best thing in the world, but it won't count. So being able to write effectively and be able to communicate, I mean, that's part of the communication, not just oral, but that written, as Anish just mentioned, being able to go back and look at what's happened before. And I think Raphael mentioned, you know, good manufacturing process or practices is critical. So yeah, I would agree with that as well. I think, and understanding why, right, from a regulatory perspective, but also from a business perspective, and having that history, so that it's not just tribal knowledge.
That's right. That's correct. Fuad?
Yes, I totally agree with what everyone said. Documentation is the key. And I would also add some characteristics that are important, like integrity. Be honest about what you document. Don't backdate. Don't forget something and try to put it on a different date than what you did. Be responsible on your own mistake. Be upfront about it. Be honest. You know, honestly can avoid you a lot of troubles. It can save the company a lot of money. So be honest, communicate well, and be sincere about what you document.
Thank you. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Raphael?
Certainly, I think writing is fundamental and essential anywhere, but in the business world and in our industry, regulated industry, it's writing and communication. And as far as requirements, I mean, we're not looking for any specific level of prose, diction, syntax, but certainly, we do want context over style. And most importantly, because in our industry, this really ties to the investigations that we write and what we present to the regulators, right? Whenever we have issues, we need to identify what the root cause is, what the corrective action is, the effectiveness, and the frequency of the recurrence of some of these problems. And all of that requires very careful documentation, right? Because ultimately we're going to be up against the regulators are defending this. And if it's poorly written and not well documented, if it's a bunch of fluff versus synthesizing it correctly, that's going to be a challenge for the company. That can result in an observation or 483. I think I can't stress that enough, the importance of having that methodical thinking process in scientific writing. And certainly, obviously, it's important in the regulatory setting. But for us in labs, obviously we focus on GDP, good documentation, and the data integrity associated with the GDP. But the most important thing in writing is this aspect of writing very good, solid investigations that are defensible. Right?
Yes, thank you. And Mark?
I would say I echo what everybody says about writing skills, right? It is absolutely a must in a regulated environment. But I would say one thing that I think everyone should practice is their oral presentation skills and get comfortable with it, because that is the #1 fear out there in the field. If you talk to anyone, they get petrified of trying to do an oral presentation. And I think that's something that you can start to work on even in high school, all the way up through college, is to be able to just be comfortable with that, so that you can give you can talk orally and give presentations.
Yeah, well, you know what the saying goes, right? The person would rather, in a funeral, they'd rather be in the casket than be giving the eulogy.
Yes, I think the key word, go back to the question #7 that we have heavily discussed is about documentations. What can the high school, what can we duplicate in the high school classroom, right? Beside the instrument, I think documentation, where we can start with the high school students to prepare themselves. And that's the bottom line. That's the fundamental to advance into the career, to the field that they want to be. How are we doing on time? Autumn, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Sorry, I sent you a text right now. If you want to just wrap up with number 13, and then we can go into the Q&As.
Okay, so we're going to jump the questions from number 9 to number 13. So let's start with Fuad. Number 13, what advice do you have for high school students who are interested in biotechnology but are not sure where to start?
Okay. First, assuming that you like the biology class that you took and you like the material learning, I would say go to a community college. That would be a good starting point. A lot of college program can be easily accessible. The program that I did can afford maybe 40 students, but there was only 9 students in the program. So there's a lot of spaces. Not a lot of people maybe know about it. Maybe not a lot of people heard about it, but definitely check with the biotechnology program. Maybe check on YouTube too. Like before you start commit, just make sure that you enjoy the subject. You enjoy where you're putting into what you're putting yourself into. Maybe go on YouTube. Just watch. There's a lot of people who talks about what they do every day. You can try to volunteer in a maybe entry level like research lab maybe. That will start to give you an idea about how you do things, and maybe some people, when you start doing things by hand, they might not like it and change their mind. It's very, especially in biotechnology, you can't be on a set schedule and expect to dedicate a lot of time for it.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with you. Let's go to Raphael.
I'm going to ask you to please that question for me because I got distracted briefly by some coworkers here and my IM. I'm sorry.
What advice do you have for the high school students who are interested in biotechnology but are not sure where to start?
I'm sorry, you got cut off at the beginning. I didn't hear the first part.
What advice do you have for high school students who are interested in biotechnology but are not sure where to start?
Well, certainly I would encourage them to ask a lot of questions. Definitely reach out, to mentors, people that have already gone through a program, people that have been through internships. I think it's just a matter of getting started. Some people initially have a great passion for working in a laboratory setting. The whole field of biotechnology is exciting because there's things to be, discovered. There's things that are, there's a lot of innovation, right, in this field. I would say definitely, come to an understanding, if that's really the path that you want to go. Because I can tell you from experience that I have people coming in a laboratory setting, and then all of a sudden they want to go do project management, something completely different, or want to go into QA, and they're not so much interested in the science aspect of it or the laboratory aspect. I guess I would advise them to make sure they know what they're getting into, and the only way you can know is obviously internship programs. That tells you whether it's something you want to commit to or not. But do your research. Talk to people that have already been through the same path.
Yes, I agree. Mark?
I would say start at the end, at the goal, right? And that is to find out if you have a passion for helping patients. Every one of our industries that we're in is all about helping the patient. And so once you decide that that's a passion for you, how you get there, whether it's biotech or biomed, or whether you're a nurse or whether you're a doctor or you're a volunteer, I think all of those will help you guide your path. But if you have a shining North Star that's all about helping patients, then you'll know that that's the right place for you.
I agree. Morgan?
Mark, I couldn't agree with you more. I didn't even know about this field existing until I ended up in a hospital myself when I was back in high school, before my senior year of high school. So I think that having a passion for patients is critical. It's what motivates a lot of our companies for existence, right? So being focused on that is paramount. But I think as far as that space of trying to figure out where to go from there, I think it really is about following curiosity. A lot of times, we say that phrase like follow your passion, but sometimes it's hard to know what your passion is. if you haven't done something yet before. So I think being curious and really encouraging students to reach out to, which can be intimidating, right, to reach out to professionals, but most of them, even if it's usually because they're busy that they don't respond, but really going and reaching out, even if it's people we don't know, to get mentorship or to get some experience, because even if it's just a one-day shadow, to come around and just see what somebody does, sometimes that can be like a very clear, absolute, oh gosh, no, that's not what I want to do, which could be very valuable even if it's not something that they want to do. So I would really encourage people to reach out to people that they're interested, you know, and that could be as simple as going on LinkedIn and going, wow, that person's job sounds kind of cool. I wonder what, you know, and just message them and those types of things. You never know who you're going to connect with or meet. And a plug again for SWE to have those resources available to students to help them with that journey.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Morgan. I think if any one of us here on this panel received an email from someone soliciting feedback on our career paths or, you know, guidance or mentorship, we'd all be very inclined to respond, even as busy as we are.
Totally agree. And we make ourselves available, because that's basically how I look at it. The next generation is our replacement, right? That we build up the pipeline for our industry. And I think, Anish, right? Did I miss you or did I already call you?
No, you just called me now, so you didn't miss
Yay!
me. My tips are purely additive, like in addition to everything else everyone said. Great advice. I think be open-minded about what you do. I think it's okay to do something for a summer if it's not what you think is your number one passion, because I don't know what mine is, and you know, like that doesn't mean I shouldn't do anything. And stay busy. Like if you have a block of time where you could be learning something, try to use it. And you know, that could be, you know, looking at labs at your like local school, college or university, and just email people and ask them, can I just shadow? Like you don't have to be paid if that works. You don't have to have your own project. You don't have to have a title. You can just go and learn and be a sponge.
Yeah, I think volunteering is a great opportunity for many, right? That would want to know.
Yeah.
I applaud to that. I think volunteer definitely play a very crucial role of put your foot into the field that you want to choose that path, career path. I can speak for myself is that I volunteered at UCI Medical Center emergency room for 3 years to make sure that, you know, my career path in medicine, is it the right career for me? So volunteer definitely play a crucial role. And I also, right now I'm part of the mentorship program at United Way. United Way have a great mentorship program for all high school kids. And I actually volunteered to be a mentor for this year. We have like 500 students sign up. And then, you know, they pay one-on-one, and we have like exchange communications, build up pipelines, and then helping the high school, the mentees, of any question they ask. So be available. So yeah,
and that's a really good way. That's a really good way to figure out if you really truly are passionate about something, because if you are, you know, you're going to do it for free. You know, obviously at one point you have to make a living, right? But certainly volunteering, you know, gives you that insight, that visibility, the networking, you know, that foot in the door, right?
Right. And I can give you for my lab, every year we sponsor a group of health club for Westminster High health club students to have a tour at the lab, to be, you know, to see what the lab look like, how operation work, from the beginning and to the end, to see the production, the operation, and so that they know behind the scene how the lab functions and each role, how the scientists, the R&D or the CLS work, and different components, you know. So the high school, I mean, that's one of the tools that they can use as well. Did I miss anybody else? Oh yeah, sure.
One thing I can mention really quick though too is for teachers as well, like Caltech professors would love it if teachers reached out to them about field trips. We used to do them. but it's really hard for professors to know who to reach out to. But it is very helpful when they're applying for grants, if they show that kind of community outreach. So I remember we had many classes come in over 3, 4, 5 years and see the microscopes that a small, like a high school or public school isn't going to be able to afford, but a private school can. And I think that was always a fun day for everyone involved.
Absolutely. I think we have everybody on, I think everybody already answered question 13. So I think we're going to move into Q&A.
Yeah, so we'll move into Q&A now. Thank you so much for moderating, Deidre. You did awesome.